Welcome to Creekside Chats with Successful Real Estate Investors, brought to you by Phelps Capital, promoting prosperity and harmony to help you flourish in all areas of life. Join in as we explore the motivations and goals of real estate investors and how their ability to invest abundantly has provided them with the time and freedom to contribute to the world in a creative and thoughtful way. Now please welcome your host, Dr. Allen.
Welcome to Creekside Chats with Successful Multifamily Real Estate Investors. I'm your host, Dr. Allen. Today's guest started 3 independent pharmacies before focusing his attention on real estate. After becoming a successful real estate investor, he wanted to share his knowledge, so he began teaching real estate courses for the State Real Estate Association and at the Commercial Real Estate Institute, where he taught on 10 different real estate subjects to over 5,000 students. As a coach and consultant, he works with those who want to make their fortune and those who want to take personal responsibility for their retirement. Welcome to the show, Stuart Gethner.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. It's a pleasure to be here. Honored to be on the show. I'm a big fan.
Thank you for saying that. I'm pleased to have you today. I really want to get to know who the real Stuart is behind a real phenomenal success story. Before we get into that, is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of your bio and your background?
I'm sure we'll get into it today, but certainly one of the things that I really enjoy is I enjoy what I do. So when you enjoy what you do, they say you'll never work a day in your life, but certainly there's work involved, but I still love what I do.
Well, wonderful. Let's find out where this all got started. And I like to go back to our childhoods. Think back to a major transformative experience in your life.
I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. I grew up in this city. I can honestly tell you the weather in Chicago, especially when I was a kid growing up, was brutal in the winter times. I was there for many snowstorms. I always liked playing outside. I always was a big baseball, softball fan. Our softball, baseball seasons were always regulated by the temperature and the conditions. I remember even on opening day once for Wrigley Field growing up in Chicago, it was snowing on opening day. There was a time when we had the snowstorm and the city of Chicago would plow the streets. In the city, there really weren't garages. We parked on the street. The snowplow would come down the street and it would plow it, and it would plow it really only in one direction. If you were on the side of the street that the snow was being tossed upon, your car got buried in the snow. And so I remember as a kid, my mom and dad would go out there and literally dig themselves out of this snow embankment in this brutally cold weather. And then they would get the car started. That was only half the battle. The next half of the battle was getting the car out of the parking spot. My mom would be in there, and my dad and I was trying to help. We would rock the car. We would push it back and forth till it gained enough momentum to get over that little hump that the tire tracks created. I remember saying to myself, why do we live here? This is brutal. And about that time, there was a brand new newspaper that came out, and it was called the USA Today newspaper. It's brand new, and it was in color. On the back of the front section, they had a map of the United States, and they would color code the weather for the United States. I remember looking to the West Coast and saying, you know what? When I grew up, that's where I want to live. And if I can live there, I can play outside all year round. For me, that was one of the most memorable experiences, which is why I live in the Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona today.
And you can play outside all year round, except when it's 110 degrees, right?
Yeah, when it's 110 degrees, you want to either play outside in the morning or after the sun starts to go down, and you always want to make sure you drink a lot of water.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. What kind of things do you do outdoors in Phoenix, Arizona?
As you may or may not know, Phoenix is a very big golf city. It's like a golf haven. And that's one of the things that I don't do. My lovely bride is a golfer. Many of my friends golf. But up until a few years ago, I still played outside. I played a lot of softball. I played baseball until I couldn't play anymore. And then we played a lot of fast pitch and slow pitch softball. I did a lot of that throughout the years. And now I still love being outside. There's a tremendous amount of hiking trails here. We have Flagstaff. We have the Grand Canyon. And right in your own backyard, people who live here love being outdoors. I'll take my dogs and we'll go hiking and just enjoy the weather, enjoy the sunsets, enjoy the serenity.
Beautiful place to do that. I do love the Southwest desert. Stuart, all of us have come to major crossroads in our lives, and we've had to make major decisions one way or the other. Can you talk to us about one of the major decisions in your life that has made all the difference?
I have a couple. One I'll share quickly. I love baseball. I tried to be a professional baseball player. And quite frankly, I just wasn't good enough. Since I wasn't good enough, I didn't know what else to do. My dad was a pharmacist. My grandpa was a pharmacist. My Uncle Max was a pharmacist. So I went into pharmacy. That at least gave me the foundation for an income. That gave me a respectable profession. The pharmacist is the #1 trusted profession in the United States. I'm still a pharmacist today. That had an everlasting effect on me.
It came from a little bit of a disappointment. You had some idea about the pharmaceutical field, but going from baseball to pharmacy, what went into that decision? Because you were a pretty young fella at the time.
We had a pharmacy in the family. It was called Gethner Drugs that my grandpa started. The goal was for me to take over that pharmacy. As time went on and I realized I didn't want to live in Chicago, I migrated out west and trailed my own path. I didn't know what else to do. I had a lot of friends that were going to law school, and I thought that would be an opportunity for me. But to be brutally honest, I'm really not a good student. It's not that I didn't always get good grades. I just didn't get good grades. I just wasn't a great student. In order to get into law school, you had to have grades. You had to pass the LSATs. I was just intimidated by that. And so I didn't even try. Just figured I wouldn't make it.
It's not easy to get into pharmacy school either. You've got to have grades to get into pharmacy school. But
Yeah.
you felt more comfortable, I guess, with the science rather than the philosophy and all of the research and so on and so forth that lawyers have to do. Yeah.
Exactly. I felt probably maybe having pharmacists in the family that I would get a boost of support. And I did. And my family is very supportive. Yes.
As you look back on your life over the last 10, 20 years, how would you say that you are different now, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually? What has brought about the change?
Thanks. So those are great questions, and those are very interpersonal questions. For me, one of the things that kind of rocked my world was I went through divorce. Seeing my parents be married for over 50 years before my dad passed, that was the standard that I wanted to live up. That was the bar, that was the threshold. So to get divorced, really, it rocked my world and it changed me. So that was certainly life-shaking. I'd say another thing that also rocked my world, believe it or not, but in 2010, I had a heart attack. I ended up in the hospital. I think you begin to reassess your life. There's an essence of mortality. Up until then, I was very assertive and aggressive with money, getting ahead, very competitive, type A personality. And I think that really had an impact and kind of mellowed me out a little bit. At that time, I got a coach. So I remember there was this baseball player, his name was Alex Rodriguez. He was at the top of his game. He was being interviewed, and they were asking him, what do you attribute to much of your success? He said, I have my own personal coaches. And the reporter asked, oh, you mean the guys on the team, those coaches? He said, no, I have my own personal coaches. I have one for fielding, and I have one for hitting. She said, you're Alex Rodriguez. You're an all-star, perennial all-star, top of your game. Why do you need these coaches? He said, why do you think I'm at the top of my game? It's because I have these coaches. I went out and I found myself an intuitive coach. We call her Coach Cheryl. And she really helped me with my mindset and changing the way that I looked at things, changing the way that I looked at the world. I even give you an example. One of the things that was extremely enlightening to me, that where the light bulb went on, and that is coming from abundance instead of coming from scarcity. To me, those concepts were never taught before. To learn the difference between a mindset of scarcity and abundance was huge for me. And going one step further, in order for me to have more does not mean that someone else has to have less, that there's enough for everybody. So when I'm out there trying to market the pharmacies, or I'm out there trying to get ahead because my competitor, there are no competitors. There's enough for everybody. And I think that mind shift changed, not just mellowed me out, but also relaxed me and allowed me to start enjoying some of the things that not only that I've accomplished, but maybe things I took for granted. Family, friends, my health, things of that nature. So yeah, those were probably two events that really has helped shape my life.
Thank you, Stuart, for sharing those very personal experiences. A divorce is what changed my life as well. Many of the people I interview, when they talk about these very low times in their life, like me, they look back on them and go, that really was the best thing that could ever have happened to me. It just transformed my life. Thanks for sharing those experiences. You filled us in a little bit about mindset and the attitude of abundance as opposed to the attitude of scarcity. Talk more about how that made you a very different person today than what you were before you started that coaching and started looking at the world through eyes of abundance.
Sure, I know we talk about apartments and multifamily, but when I first started, when I'd owned pharmacies, just buying some single family residences, just buying some individual houses. Then wholesaling became a popular buzzword, and then everyone was enamored with fix and flip. I was amazed to see that when I would go talk to other people who were competitors of mine, whether they were buying single-family residences or they were wholesalers, they never really wanted to tell you how they did it. They were always secretive of their strategies. I remember when I first started getting into real estate, I had just sold the pharmacies. I took the news, and I had a non-compete clause, but they wanted me to be in the office. They wanted me to be there for, I think it was 6 months or a year. If I would bring the Sunday newspaper into the office, they never really needed me, but I guess they wanted me there. I would call them the FSBOs, the for sale by owners. I was just getting started doing it full time. I had this script that I would wrote these questions, and I would ask about the property. When was the last time it was updated? Just this maybe 10 or 12 questions that I felt I would be prepared. When the person answered the phone, I would interview and have a good check-in sheet. One of the first things I noticed was when I did that on Monday morning, and I was calling FSBOs, most of them were at work, and not a lot of them were answering the phone. So that was the first lesson I learned. But then I got someone on the phone, and I asked the questions, and I thought the questions would probably take 10, 15 minutes to ask. Probably finish those questions in about 30, 45 seconds. And they got this uncomfortable, awkward lull as to what do you say next. So I said to the person, I'm a real estate investor. I'm wondering if this might be a good investment property. But the lady said, well, I'm a real estate investor too. And this is investment property. I said, gosh, would you mind if I took you out to lunch and maybe you could teach me a few things? I could pick your brain. Maybe you could show me the ropes. She said, why would I want to do that? If I do that, then I'll just have another competitor in the marketplace. And to me, at the time, I'm like, you can't really corner the market on investment property, can you? So to me, I noticed that most people didn't want to share. When I started teaching these classes and then branched off and put on my own seminars and conferences and started the coaching, I share what I do. I share how I would pull lists. I share how I would market. I share how I would evaluate property, how I would evaluate rents. And that really brought me a community of other people who were like-minded and who enjoyed sharing. And we would always get that guy or gal that would come in and just pass out a bunch of business cards and grab everybody else's business card and leave. But for the most part, and then we don't invite them back. But for the most part, it's a community of sharing. For me, is a mindset of abundance, the mindset of there's enough for everyone. It has brought me great wealth. I don't mean just financial wealth, but has brought me some wonderful relationships with people that I probably never would have met or become professional friends with over the years. To me, that has tremendous value.
There's a whole lot more to wealth than financial, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's hard to go through life without some financial wealth, but there's certainly got to be a whole lot more. Talk to us about how you've come to realize that. Every successful person has had to deal with disappointments and setbacks. Talk to us about a major disappointment and setback in your life and how it is that you dealt with it, and what have you learned from that?
In addition to the divorce that I spoke about, I would like to add that I have since met another woman who I call my lovely bride, and this September we'll be married 8 years. For those of you that have gone through that turbulent times, you'll appreciate when I say, and we still like each other. We're still friends. And so that's a personal setback. From a professional setback, if I can be brutally honest, they happen all the time. There's a lot of disappointment when you're putting together deals, working with investors, raising capital, deploying capital. If someone commits to putting in money in the pot, then when it comes time to put money in the pot, you hear, oh, I wish you would have called me yesterday. I just invested in oil and gas, or I just invested in another project. There's always disappointments. So much so that I can honestly say that there were times that I would want to quit and say to myself, I don't need this. I can go back being a pharmacist. I don't need this aggravation. I would say that it's happened enough times that I created a vanity plate for my car, and the vanity plate says, won't quit. When I get angry, frustrated, or aggravated, and I want to take myself out for a drive or what have you, I always reflect and I laugh and I chuckle, because I know I've been here before, and if I can just calm down and get rid of the angst and the anxiety, the disappointment, the anger, that ultimately at the end of the day, I can honestly say things work out. And most of the time, to be honest, they work out for the best. Things that end up being the most disappointment, the most aggravating, the most frustrating are where I probably learned my best lessons. And probably one of my best lessons is not just persistence, because when people ask me, oh, what do you think is an attribute for success? I'll come up with attitude and I'll come up with persistence. But I also learned patience. And we always want to get it done fast, get on to the next task, because in our lives of making list of things to do, there's always stuff left on the list of things to do the next day that didn't get done today. And I think that's a quality, if you want to call it a quality, of us overachievers. We always want to get on and do more. And then the challenge with that is we never have the chance to slow down and take a look in the rear view mirror and appreciate what we've accomplished. And so disappointments, yes, many of them, but they've all worked out for the best, because I am who I am today and I wouldn't want to be anybody else. And besides, everybody else is taken. So I'll be myself.
That brings up a question I grapple with, and I think a lot of busy people do. And that is that question of success just doesn't come without commitment and without a certain amount of involvement in busyness. The question I have is, where is it that we draw that line between busyness and taking time to smell the roses? Have you found that balance? And if you have, how did you find it? How do you deal with it in your life?
I found that balance after I had that heart incident. I started to find more of that balance. Every so often I find myself getting back in the overachievement mode, because it's something that I really enjoy doing. I love what I do. I love coaching and helping people. That's what I get satisfaction out of. I love showing others how to do it, whether it's raising capital, buying multifamily, whatever that is. To me, I'm a teacher, and I love doing that. However, I've also realized at this stage in my life, I'm not immortal. I want to make sure that I have balance in my life. I love working out. I love going to the gym, love hiking with my dogs, as I mentioned. It's a crazy time right now with the pandemic, but I love to travel. When I get to travel, I get to see how other people live. We haven't been able to do that lately. But I know that one day, hopefully someday soon, this will all be behind us. Whether it's because we've got a vaccine or a treatment or whatever that is, we're not going to live like this forever. But for me, I enjoy the travel aspect, and that's what brings me balance, is being able to go out and see the world, meet new people, see how other people do the same thing that we do, and live their lives just a slightly different. It's not wrong, it's not right, it's just different. I enjoy seeing that.
We're coming to the end of our time, Stuart. It's been a real pleasure talking with you. Before we go, share with our viewers and listeners how it is best to connect with you.
According to the old-fashioned way, I'm happy if you want to give me a call. I answer my phone, and that phone number is 480-443-4500. That's 480-443-4500. And my email address is my name, Stuart, Stuart, the @ and my last name, Gethner, G like George, ETH, like Nancy, ER, Stuart@Gethner.com. Feel free to call me. Feel free to email me. The website is contactstuart.com. I'd be happy to reach out, be happy to share my experiences and hear a little bit more about yours and your viewers' experiences as well.
Before we go, I just have one last question I ask most people on my show, and that is, when you come to the end of this life's journey, how do you want your epitaph or your obituary to read?
So first, I'm a family man. I took care of my family. Second, I'd like it to be known that I show up. When people invite me to things, I show up. And last but not least, I learned this from a football player named Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was always over-prepared. And so when I show up, and I show up prepared, and I'm ready. There's an expression, you never get hit by the bus coming, so I try to over-prepare so I don't get hit by any buses. But family man, show up prepared, and I enjoyed helping people achieve their goals and their dreams.
Stuart, it's just been a real pleasure to connect with you today. I look forward to many other opportunities where we can connect even further.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Creekside Chats with Successful Real Estate Investors, brought to you by Steve Talker Capital. For more information, as well as access to our free ebook on enhancing your well-being through real estate investing, be sure to connect with us at steedtalker.com. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steed Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine and enhance the humane treatment of horses worldwide. Steed Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. Connect with us at steedtalker.com.